Hey, yo, guys, it's Guido coming at you with I guess it's a coffee talk. I got my coffee, but we're going to do a little good cop, bad cop here. I'm going to start with good cop. Start with some thanks. So it's Christmas, so gifts are flying about and whatnot. I wanted to thank Wargaming for the boxes, the 200 they gave me, and for the whole CC thing. We're going to talk about why specifically in just a second, but before we get to that, and then we're going to talk about the changes that are coming. That's the bad cop part, all right? So we're going to start off with the happy, joy. And it's not going to be negative. I just want to discuss the things that came out in the 2020, next year plan video. Okay, year in review or year in preview, whatever it is. They call it the Q&A. So first thing I want to talk about, though, is my partner in 1212 Gaming, Slick. You probably haven't seen too much of him. Maybe some of my DCS content you've seen him. But sent me this book that you can get right now from Wargaming, which is called 10 Years World of Tanks. Pretty cool. Check it out. So really nice cover. Looks cool. And then the interior, it's the art of World of Tanks, I believe, also. But inside of it's got all kinds of artwork. How did I turn on to the EBR? Get out of here. All right, here we go. T-44. There's an iconic Russian tank right there, the T-44, and it's just really well done, guys. I mean, it is pretty cool as a Christmas gift. Christmas gifts are often things that aren't spectacularly useful, but they're thoughtful and cool. And I'm telling you what, so it's got art of the different maps and things. This is actually pretty well done. Very cool. The other cool thing about this is it came with a code, which I promptly put on my EU account, as you can see right there, and gave me 7 days more of premium and a few goodies along the way. So that was cool. Highly recommend if you're into that kind of coffee table book thing. Very cool thing to have. If you have that World of Tanks player who has everything, that might be just the thing to send them to let them know that you are thinking of them. Cheers to Slick. There's nothing in there, just coffee. All right. Second thing, Wargaming. I was asked to be part of the CC program at NA, I don't know, a couple of years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. It might be working on 3, to be honest, and I'm not 100% sure. But it's been nothing but fun and an honor to meet the guys. Thanks to Wargaming writ large, thanks to the community teams as we neck it down, and very much thanks to the NA community team. Cabbage, Domo, Tragic, Crazy Boop, and the crowd in there. I know I missed other names, but those are the primary ones we deal with. Thank you very much to those guys for bringing the various CCs on board and giving us a bit of a voice. It's a symbiotic relationship. You always get the people saying, "Well, you're just a shill," all that good stuff. Okay, yeah, you know what? I do a little bit. Deal with it. It's a game I like. Why would I not? Why would I not shill a little bit for a game that I like? Are there things I don't like? Well, we'll get to that. We're going to get to that. But that's part of it, isn't it? Wargaming brings on CCs, and it's not that they expect something. It's just that if you like the game and you're being positive about it, that's only beneficial for them in terms of bringing more people on board, keeping people on board, keeping a positive attitude, and advertising their game. The symbiotic part for us is we end up getting content, tanks, and things like that. And for me, I actually got a trip out to Conneaut to go to D-Day Conneaut, which is fantastically cool, paid for by Wargaming. So, you know what? There is a little bit of shilling going on. The question then becomes, do they listen to us in terms of gameplay or design? I don't know. That's another piece of it, and that's a really good question. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the plans for later on. Is there anything that says they really should listen to CCs? Oh, no. I mean, game design and balance is an interesting thing. It really is. And you can listen to your players too much. There are examples of that in gaming. You can listen to them too little. There are examples of that in gaming as well. How much of a voice we have is hard to quantify. I would imagine it's some. I would hope it's some. And there's probably more for certain people than others based on the things that they know and the skill in the game and all that good stuff. But I have really enjoyed being a CC. I've enjoyed this community who has supported me. And Wargaming decided to send us a gift. And this probably started about 6-8 months ago, I think. Been a bit of a long process. Thanks to Domo for bird dogging this thing, because for a little while I thought I probably wasn't going to get it. It's fine. It's not a big deal if it didn't come. I think one was sent and got lost in the ether somewhere. But as you can imagine, something coming from their headquarters to here, that's a pretty long ways. And there were some troubles, shall we say, around that time, and currently still are. So thanks for people putting in an effort that didn't have to. Frankly, I mean, that's the bottom line here. Putting in an effort that didn't have to, and I do appreciate it. But I've got it right here. Not going to show any of the addresses or things there, but it's wrapped all in black, and it came to me up to the door, and the guy handed it to me. And, holy cow! Somebody, it looks like, I hate to say it, but it looks like a brick of cocaine for some reason. But hopefully it's not. That's something just triggered on the internet, and I'm being investigated right now. All right, so got my, look at these bad boy scissors. These things are amazing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and carefully open this thing up. We'll do a little unboxing here. I think everyone kind of knows what it is, to be honest, because multiple other CCs have already got one. But we're going to check this out. And then right after this, I'm going to show you guys this thing. We will go into the looking at what the developers are talking about for the near future and changes. We're talking about changes to HE. We're talking about changes to artillery. Here we go again. And some other basic crew changes for Crew 2.0. That's going to be an important one as well. And man, this thing is well packed. There is enough. Goodness gracious, there is enough. What's this bubble wrap here? To ship 14 things. All right, there we go. Try to get this thing open here. All right, so there we go. So we got a box. We got a box in a box. So we'll slide the cover off the box. All right, let's move the giant skizzers. We got a nice black box kind of thing going on here. It looks like it. Oh, there we go. We got the wargaming symbol on the black box. It's got some pretty cool cutout corners, so you can lift it out, slide it out. Let's see what we got here. Everyone probably knows, but we're just gonna reveal it. Here we go. Oh, look at that. That is one hefty box, man. I think it's not kidding. So we've got a battle button that they sent. Very cool, and it says, gonna need my binoculars. So I can't read it. I need my binoculars. Here we go. Fred. No, it says Guido 1212, tanker since 10/6/2011, over 86,000 battles and counting. 86,000 served. That is pretty cool. Does it make a noise? Oh. All right, we got a little scroll. Hear ye, hear ye. Hear ye, hear ye. What you see is not just a memorable gift, it's a symbol of a decade-long journey. You've gone through thousands of battles, and each time you clicked this particular button. You're an integral part of this game. In this journey, on behalf of the Wargaming personnel, let me thank you for your input and dedication. To understand how much you mean to us, World Tanks has over 160 million registered players around the world. The number of these presents does not exceed 1,000. I'll see you in game. Vic. Well, Victor, thanks, man. And to your company and your employees, thank you as well. That's a cool, cool sentiment. Man, this thing's been through a little bit of battle. The box is a little bit beat up, even as sturdy as it is. I can't imagine the tales this thing has as far as where it's been and how it got here. So it is a metal battle button. It's got the World of Tanks symbol on it. It's got the little plaque I read. It's got the battle thing, the broken looking like metal. That's fantastically cool. All right, Victor, thanks. Domo, everybody else. This is going somewhere. I'll have to find a place, but for now, let's just let's put it up here. There we go. See what you did? That's right. That's what happens on live TV, even though this is a recording. I could edit that out, but I'm not going to, because that's how we roll on this channel. And then I've got, looks like a pin. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to get, okay. I guess you're supposed to unpin it like that. There we go. So there's also a World of Tanks pin with the symbol. Fantastic. I'll put that on my tie if I ever meet Victor. Victor, come on out to Florida. Come have a beer with me, man. All right. Couple beers, whatever. I don't care. Very cool. Thank you. All right, now we're going to get into the bad cop. No, we're not going to do that. As always, I try to be as constructive as possible on this channel, so we're going to go ahead and dive in. I'll switch around the situation here a little bit, and we're going to start talking a little bit about some of the changes and what I think of them. So, again, thanks, Wargaming. Maybe you won't be as happy with me in a minute. No, you will be. It'll be fine. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Here we go. So we are on Harkonnen site, The Daily Bounce. Shout out to Harkonnen. Great place to get information about World of Tanks. So he's got a blog. Lots of good stuff. This is the article stream of the year 2020, Q&A with Developers Digest. We're going to dive right into it. This is from Artem Safronov, executive producer of World of Tanks. And he is actually going to give us some information, a little bit of a preview of things they're thinking about. None of this, as I know, is set in stone. So there's sandbox potentially on some of them before we even get to test servers, super test, blah, blah, blah. So take that for what it is. Let's just discuss the changes and my thoughts on some of them. HE Shells Rebalance 2.0. Let me just start off with HE. Let me go back a little bit to what I talked about earlier, what I was thanking everybody. The gravity, the importance of a CC's opinion, I don't know. So we'll take it or leave it as far as that goes. I have to assume it's a little higher than normal because they can look at this video, and I do have a little bit of reach, not much, obviously, as one of the smaller CCs, but we'll see how that goes. I am not making this video expecting to get any kind of huge changes based on what I say, but I think you guys might be interested in these things and maybe some of my thoughts, and then I am interested in what you guys think down below in the comments. So regarding HE shells, I'm not really sure what the problem is. Rarely do we get from the developers a problem statement, as in this is the problem as we see it, or the problem we're trying to fix. We get this general idea potentially, okay, RDE is being rebalanced, but it's not really. All right, what are we aiming at? HE shells are being rebalanced. Well, what's the problem with HE? It seems like sometimes there's an assumption that everyone knows what the problem is, but I don't know what the problem is. There's a small clue. There's a small clue in that developers want to eliminate the spam HE anywhere to deal damage. Okay, but you've designed a bunch of tanks that's kind of their strength, right? They're very derpy guns. That's the idea of them. It's been that way for a very long time in the game. What is the imbalance problem that is presenting to us? Yes, the Type 4 and 5 were overpowered a while back. More broken, let's put it that way. More broken than overpowered. But you kind of dialed back their damage. And this really seems like more of a slider scale on attributes of guns and damage, really, than, holy cow, let's rebalance HE shells. Bottom line, I'm not really sure what the problem is or what it is we're trying to fix, other than spam HE anywhere to deal damage. That being said, all right, let's pretend that the problem is you can spam HE anywhere to deal damage. What's the fix? Well, damage calculate based on where the shell land exactly, so the armor will take a big part in calculating damage. I thought it already did. You hit a heavily armored section, rarely do you do a bunch of damage. What I don't know, and I'm not sure here if they're comparing and contrasting their last attempt to fix it, or they're comparing and contrasting what happens now, or there's a combo of the two. One of the big problems we have with these Q&As is it's a translation from another language typically, or it's somebody speaking in not their native language to communicate and answering questions. So there you go. Players will have to aim where to hit an HE shell to deal more damage. Okay, I think you already do that, right? I mean, if you hit a lighter armored area, or you happen to go through a weak spot, you do more damage. I'm not really sure what the difference is here, so I'm missing something here. Maybe somebody can fix me down in the comments and fix me, but I don't get it. Changes will be tested in sandbox, making sure, yeah, absolutely. Make sure they're not game breaking. Good idea. Spaced armor will play a bigger part against HE. I thought it already did. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just tracks I'm thinking of. So that's an interesting one. That's not one I'd heard before right there. So HE balance. I don't know, guys. I'm not really sure what the point is. So maybe it's just me. Artillery. Here we go. History lesson. Artillery wasn't in the game to begin with, was added into the game, was immediately hated by good players. We'll talk about why in just a second. Became pretty much dominant for a long time, where there was a time, and I played this game almost from the beginning, not quite beta, but right after release. There was a time when if your scouts could get in and your artillery could take out their artillery, you had created a massive advantage, and that was the focus of the beginning moves of a lot of games. I mean, you were an artillery, you were looking for those scouts to come screaming through, and that was before physics, so scouts were glued to the ground. There weren't as many undulations, and they could maneuver like go-karts. T-50-2 comes to mind, and they could avoid being hit, much like wheeled tanks can now. The same exact problem, basically, in the early days of being difficult to hit the stupid light tanks and stop them from getting in and taking out the artillery, or at least spotting them so the other artillery could. In addition to that, there was a long time where there was very visible tracers, and counterfire was highly effective against artillery. That was one of the things they threw in a little while later in order to try to counter and balance the problem with SPGs being so powerful and doing so much damage when they hit, having the splash and all that good stuff. Then we've had a couple iterations of that, and now we are where we are with some stun, a little bit less damage, and 3 artillery still being basically the same problem, artillery in general, and 3 especially, basically being the same problem you had at the beginning of artillery. Now, artillery was put in the game because they were also having a problem, and this is a balance issue, with very good players being able to get into very good spots, and they were really hard to dig out. All right, really hard. There was a lot less tanks in the game. Some tanks were just really good at being in certain positions, and that's where we get this idea of artillery is for digging out, hold down tanks you can't defeat otherwise. And there was some truth to that. So artillery is thrown in, but then artillery became dominant, then it got nerfed, then it got changed, and here we are. So all that being said, what is the actual problem with artillery? The bottom line, and this is what I've said the whole time, and I think is the core truth of it. The problem with artillery in this game, as it's been mech'd, has been that it is unaccountable, that you can't do anything about it until late game. Now, when you had good scouts that were glued to the ground and they could sneak through, then they started to have an effect on arty. That was the only accountability that you had. But they changed that. Now you can't really do that with a scout. Wheeled tanks can, sort of, but even wheeled tanks are going to have a hard time getting all the way into the back and taking out arty. It happens. But that's kind of a bad balance system, right? If your balance for the unaccountability of arty early to mid-game is to allow really fast tanks to rage through and somehow kill them off without getting killed, that's terrible. That's just it's not a good balance. And I think Wargaming understands that. So good players don't like it. Really, anyone doesn't like being bombed on it when you can't do anything about it. You get bombed by arty, you can't do a single thing. My opinion on it has always been the only way to bring arty into more of a close focus or more into World of Tanks as a game is to make them more vulnerable somehow without making them completely helpless. And it's always been to me that artillery should be the counter to artillery. You know, they had good tracers a while back, and it was fun to do counter arty, and it was actually effective. But once they reduced the damage, and so the splash one wasn't as good, and they made the little firing tracer thing really hard to see, it's very, very difficult to counter. So again, we're back to unaccountable artillery, where people are just getting bombed and there's not a thing they can do. That's the core problem. It really is. Now, if you make artillery more vulnerable early, you've got to compensate by making them a little bit more effective, or at least more in line with effectiveness of other tanks. It's not a case where you can just say, well, screw arty, we're going to make them more vulnerable, let's let arty bomb each other to death early on and make it really easy to kill each other, and then they'll have a mini game within a mini game. You've got to bring them into the game so they're more playing World of Tanks instead of playing whack-a-mole. And then you can't make them so vulnerable that it's just whack-a-mole against each other. So I think they're kind of aiming at that just a little bit here. I'm glad they finally listened to me. I'll be honest, some of these are things I've been talking about for years. I think other people have, but frankly, I'll be honest with you, few people have been talking about these other than me. I'm telling you, and every time I bring it up, I get poo-pooed. Because what I have said is you need to make the tracers more visible, all right? You need to bring artillery closer to in line with how the game is played, i.e. you move someplace, you shoot, you endanger yourself. Okay. I also talked about having a siege mode so that you're more accurate with your artillery when you're in siege mode, but you're slower or you can't move at all, okay, which makes you more vulnerable. And a travel mode, which makes you wildly inaccurate because the ability to shotgun people and scouts is ridiculous while you're moving with artillery. All right, so if you're in siege mode, you're very accurate. If you're pointing at a scout coming in, you should be able to hit them pretty well. But if you're in travel mode, yes, you can avoid stuff, maybe even make things faster. But once you bring these different mechanics in, then you start to adjust the capabilities of the artillery, because a lot of the arguments against what I've said has always been, well, you can't do that because then they'll miss or they'll be slow or whatever. No, you have to adjust from there. The balance is not just a one thing. If you're going to change something, there other things may change. For example, if you're going to make them have siege mode, which makes them very vulnerable when they're in siege mode, they're going to have compensation in being a little more accurate and maybe doing a little bit more damage. We have to be careful with that. We don't want a whole bunch of damage. They need to be doing damage more in line with the tier of the tanks they're in. So you may actually have them firing a little bit more, right? They may be a little bit more accurate. But as long as they're in danger more easier to counter, then you can afford to have that in your game. You can afford to have that in your game. And I think that's some of what they're doing. They love this new type of shell thing. I don't know if that matters, but they are going to change that a little bit. There's going to be one that has a stun, fixed damage, big splash. The second will have a smaller splash, no stun, bigger damage. Third one will have regular damage, no stun. So it sounds like there's an AP version in here, and then a big splash, fixed damage, and then a small splash, big damage, no stun. That's kind of interesting. We'll have to see how that goes. Each shell type will have different trajectories. That's new. Possible to hit tanks behind obstacles, second, blah, blah, blah. I don't have any trouble hitting things behind obstacles a lot of times. It's the ones where they're really snugged up against it that's going to be a problem. I don't think any of this is going to fix that. But you can hit the shell with the explosion radius, up above on a building next to them or over to the side and still splash people. They're going to fix that a little bit and give you an indication of whether you can hit somebody that's behind something. That's kind of interesting. So that will be helping out. If they're more vulnerable, they give them a little bit more capability. The idea is to create a different experience using SPG. They say this a lot. I don't know where it comes from. They don't need a different experience. Different than it is now? Maybe. What they need to be is brought in more in line with the game. All right. There will be reduced reload if you're fully loaded and decide to change shells type. That's interesting. Because that's one of the very big disadvantages of having multiple types of shells for artillery is such a long reload. Some shells are just not worth trying. If you're going to go, ooh, I'm going to use an AP, and then you don't have that shot on that guy anymore, and now you've got an AP round that's not going to be useful for the targets you have, that would suck. So that's one of those bonuses you've got to give them if you're going to make them more vulnerable, make them more interesting. Developers are considering SPG 6 Sense. If an SPG makes a shot, the player will see an indicator that an SPG made a shot, a few seconds only, not making massive difference in gameplay, but gives the player an opportunity to move before he... Now, I don't understand what that means. As in, it just tells you, hey, there's a shot inbound, or it's telling you where it came from. I think it's just telling you there's a shot inbound. So that's kind of interesting right there. Another big change, introduction of siege mode. They'll be able to fire... They will only be able to fire if in siege mode and not outside of it. One thing I've talked about there for balance considerations is if you're going to give a siege mode, I would make them do the top-down only in siege mode, and if they want a shotgun, it would be in travel mode. And if the shotgun thing was a little bit more accurate, that wouldn't bother me too much, but you would not be able to immediately switch to top-down mode. There's ways to work around through that accuracy-wise. I think it's kind of silly that artillery can be in top-down mode and then immediately switch to siege mode and blap somebody right there. Tracers will make a return to the game and will have strong color. Man, I've been saying that for years. One of the biggest things you can do to mitigate artillery and bring them more in line with the game is to make the tracers well more easy to see. Well more easy to see. There will be a splash zone area. I talked about that. The mini-map will show indicators where SPG made a shot. Now, where SPG made a shot that hit, not precise, just the area. So I'm assuming where the shell hit, there's going to be an indicator. this is supposedly going to show you where the shot came from, or at least help you understand that. Not necessarily. If there's no kind of direction indicator, something out in the open could have been from any direction. So unknown how that's going to work. Again, this is all work in progress stuff right here. So some interesting concepts and a lot of things that I've said. You know, I think one of the coolest things they could do is let scouts see the artillery fire if they're close enough. You know, 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, something, not across the entire map, but if they get close enough, and even if the artillery is not spotted, that to give a sector indication or a general area to say artillery fired from here if they fire. Let scouts do that. Give scouts another thing to do. Go in and kind of find where the artillery is without necessarily finding them exactly. Then your artillery can go, oop, noted. Now you got better tracers, and now it's a bit more of the artillery is playing the tank game. You fire, you move. You got to get out of the way. You fire, you move. Siege mode complicates that just a little bit, so those are all things we can work with. But interesting. We'll see how that works. Do I really think artillery needs to be rebalanced? It's not bad right now. I don't like 3 artillery. It's not fun to get bombed by 3 artillery on Malinovka, or especially Proc if you're on the 5-6 line, that kind of thing. So my answer is, I guess. Is it really top problem right now? I don't think so. We'll see. If you make it more interesting for SPG players, bring it more in line with the game. All right, bring them into more of being in danger the whole game, but also increase the capability of artillery so that it can also contribute without being so annoying that it is unaccountable. You will have done something pretty impressive. I don't know if that's possible. My ideas, which some of these are, I think could possibly bring you there, but it is fraught with danger because the one capability it has of being able to shoot across most of the map is hard to balance in this game. Because everything else relies on line of sight, right? All the balance, all the maneuver, all the positions, all the spotting, everything else about the game relies on line of sight as a giant part of the mechanics. And they ignore that with their shots. That's a hard one, man. That's a hard one. All right, Crew System 2.0. Oh, boy. Frankly, Wargaming, this is a problem created by thy own self. You have let your crew system languish for so long that all of a sudden it looks like we need a giant reorganization. I would say you do not. I would love to see you scrap this idea and make small iterative changes of improvement to creature comfort stuff. But I think we're going to get Crew System 2.0 no matter what we do. I am a little bit disappointed we got to this level. Really, here's what I would do. I would take every crew, and I would make every crew a 4-man crew. Commander, gunner, driver, loader. Loader would have the radio skills on it. Then I would rework the useless skills, make them interesting, or just put new ones in. Then I would add new skills along the way. What does that do? It addresses one of the big pain points of crews with weird configurations, radio operators being on multiple different guys, not being able to swap crews easily between premiums and even other tanks as you upgrade them, losing crew as you go, the Manticore. I'm still angry at you, Wargaming, for the Manticore. You really boned your customers with that one. I mean, it's hard enough to get a good crew with 3 crew, and then you put 2 crew on a tier 10. That was such a massive screw job. Nobody cares about historical accuracy except you in that case. I don't get it. This is me being a dick. Thanks for the battle button. I love you guys, but that was bullshit. I'm sorry, it was 2 crew. At least let people take that 3rd crew member they lost and dump his experience into those guys, and at least help a little bit. Not get absolutely boned trying to compete against 3 and 4 crew tanks at that level. It's just, I don't get it, man. Anyway, I think to some extent in the back of the mind is, well, we're going to fix this all with Crew System 2.0. Man, I really wish you wouldn't. I wish you'd make all crews 4 so that you can move them around, no problem. That leaves the individual crew members, which some people, I think a considerable number of people, like. That allows you to keep the tie-in crews like the boys and other such things intact. Allows you to keep things like special crews kind of intact as well. It makes it easier to move, and then you just work on the skills. You do it iteratively. What I don't understand this I was going to say a naughty word, but this just got to have the crew system 2.0 thing. So it's a lot like World of Warships, where the crew is the crew. There's some other stuff going on here. You'll be able to move them between three vehicles. Oh my God, that makes me want to poke my eyes out. Trying to figure out, once I redo all these crews, trying to figure out which three that crew is going to run. Oh, please, for the love of God, no. And then we're going to have unique crews, like New Year and Female Crew, will have a purpose in the new system. Possibly they'll be good crews with a stat boost. Credit where credit is due. Did a nice job with the equipment. As a general rule, I think that was pretty well done. But I found that to be much less of a change than this one overall, in terms of how you kind of manage your stuff. This is going to be a massive change. And I'm a power user. I have a lot of crews. I know a lot of your customers don't have as many as I do, but the idea of having to rework as many crews as I have and then pick 3 tanks for each crew to be in, and and it's not a case of I don't want it to be balanced. It's not a case of I don't want it to change. It's a case of you don't have to do it. It's not required. You could do it so you can address the pain points of moving crews by making them all 4. You can address the pain points of 3-person crews being an ass pain at high tier, and 2-person crews being a triple ass pain at high tier. Mana core. So those pain points are gone. You keep the cool stuff about having individual crews, which people like, and then you work on the skill system, which I think is really the biggest problem, isn't it? It's the skill system that's languished. Those other things are pain points. People have worked through them. You can streamline it easily by making them all 4. Done. It's a done deal. And then work the skills and perks. You know? I don't know. Developers emphasize how important these changes are. To who? And that they really don't want players to lose out. Well, they are going to lose out because people have spent a lot of time and effort under the current rules system, and that's not really the question. I think you can do a lot to minimize it. Like I said, you did a nice job with equipment. I don't think it'd be lost out on equipment. In fact, some people made out like bandits. So as far as that goes, good job. If you continue down this silly road, I hope you do as well as you did with the equipment, but I'm not going to like it because I really think there's a better way, a better and easier way. The other beauty about my plan is you can save all this ridiculous development time, and whoever you can re-roll those guys into something else. Anyway, there you go. That's Guido's opinion for what it's worth, which is probably nothing. Battle Pass is going to change. Not going to get into that too much. That's fine. Battle Pass has been pretty cool, so they're going to add a little bit of a... You know what? This is iterative changes. Iterative changes, a little bit at a time, making it better and better. When stuff languishes for years and years, I'm looking at you, crew system, that's where you have issues. Maps training, I like this. You're going to be able to get into a map, I'm assuming on your own. I don't know why you can't just make the training rooms single player, but I don't. there must be something very specific in the way the backdoor is the coding is done for training rooms that makes it where they can't let one player go in there. I don't know, but cool. I think that's great. Italian heavy tanks are coming. Auto reloaders makes me want to poke my eyes out, but here they come. That's cool. More content. Got it. Check tanks. Not much announced, but there are some check tanks. New maps. Port map will make a return. There it is. Check it out. Pretty cool. Completely reworked. I don't even know if that even looks the same at all. Yeah, there's the bridge. So maybe it does look a little bit the same. Looks like a big port. Clearly in Super Test, a lot of the textures aren't quite done. Oh no, none of these. Oh, dude. I'm sorry, guys, but your camera controls do not work with these things. Please stop making underground shit. That's another thing that makes me want to poke my eyes out, attempting to work the camera as I'm driving through these tunnels. Oh my gosh, it's bad enough on Frontline. We've got events: Waffle, Steel Hunter, Frontlines, Halloween. Only one of those is even remotely interesting to me, but I know that a lot of you love that, so good. They're going to make more iterative improvements, and I know people like these things. Should I delve off a little bit? We've been going for a while. Can I peel off a little bit into my diatribe about rewards that I can only get in special events? Can you please make the rewards available in other ways, even if it's later on? The reward tanks and things. I don't want to play Steel Hunter Halloween mode in the last Waffle, and I barely want to play Frontlines to get the rewards. I would love to get the rewards, but I don't want to. I'm here for the base game. That's what brought me here. That's what I love. That's what I want to play. Stop making me, not making me. Nobody's making me do anything, but let me get the rewards other than in these extra modes. Even if it's a year later. You go, all right, so that one was given away. People had it for a year. Here's another way. Get it with bonds. Get it with gold. I don't know, sell it, make another marathon for it, something. I think bonds are probably your best bet right there, by the way. Anyway, I won't get into false scarcity and all the other stuff that gaming companies use, which drives me crazy. All right, new platoon search system. Be able to look for random players to platoon by entering a queue. That's cool. All right. Team clans. Making a return with some change. What is team clans? With 4 new contributors and 4 smaller ones. Okay, that is all EU. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that for NA guys. Developers didn't want to disclose the introduction of new nations because of the amount of time work. So yeah, create expectations. New nations, that's interesting. I don't know who else you would add. I guess Israel is one of the top ones. 2021 will bring tanks to 2 nations. Yep, those ones we talked about. Oh, yeah. They have a branch of wheeled tanks and one of Victor's chieftain. There was a blurb in here somewhere about wheeled tanks, as they didn't want to bring any more in because they were had some negative press. 2021 will bring some rebalances to tanks. All right, good. Iterative changes are good. Some things need to be nerfed, some need to be buffed. Can we talk about premium tanks, Wargaming? Can we talk about, can you back off and you never will, and it's not your fault. It's the player base's fault, to be honest. The whole, I bought this tank, if it gets nerfed, I'm gonna, dude. If it's imbalancing the game and you're pissing and moaning about imbalanced game and you're not willing to back off your overpowered premium, get out. It's just, it ain't great. I don't want my tanks I like nerfed either, but if it's causing a problem, how about we balance the game? Anyway, no plans to introduce tanks above tier 10. That's a perennial question. No plans to improve or change training rooms. No plans to introduce skill-based matchmaking. Interesting. Don't want to here it is. Don't want to introduce new wheeled vehicles due to bad feedback. Hark makes a good point. Strangely enough, they've got a UK branch ready to be introduced. Okay, fantastic. Homefront might make a return. There are new ideas for it, but nothing certain. What is that? I think that's against the bots or whatever. Ammo rebalance is on standby for now. Okay, that's not just HE or SPG. That was the ammo rebalance thing. These other changes are already stressful enough. And there I am throwing fuel on the fire. There are plans to improve the blueprint system. All right, cool. No plans to rework RNG. Woo, just one little sentence. All right. Unpopular tanks could be rebalanced during the year if necessary. Yeah, isn't that interesting that unpopular is generally bad? It makes sense. I get it. I actually like some of the bad tanks, simply because they are bad. That's just me. Developers thought about introducing personal missions 3.0. They even could do it this year. That would be cool. But they don't want to because each new campaign to have something new and unique. No, they don't. No, they don't, actually. Come on, open up your aperture. What is wrong with you guys? You have tons of reward tanks that you've already given out for various special occasions, special events. Just chuck a couple of those bad boys in there. Make a personal mission 3.0 to get the what is it? The KPTZ 50T. Make one to get the AE Phase 1. Make one to get the Char Future 4. Make it a long, drawn-out grind. What? It's so easy. Seriously. What? Oh my gosh. We have to make new content. No, you don't. You have players would love to grind out your game and play the crap out of it to get tanks that they can only get in, I was going to call them a name, these special events. Anyway, no plans to introduce smoke grenades into the game. Who cares? Mainly due to performance in the game. For example, if several players deploy them, yeah, that would, you see, you get down to 2 frames as all this smoke is flying around. No plans to introduce a regular customizable garage. All right. One thing I would love to see in there, and you know, I'm not a developer or a coder, but and I don't know what the engine can do, but wouldn't it be great if you could put some variation on maps so that when you load into it, you've got variation A, B, C, or D, and it just changes that map ever so slightly. You don't even have to tell people that that's the variation you have. You just go to that spot and it's slightly different. Dynamic ones that actually changed, you know, every time or every week or every 3 days or whatever would be even better. I don't know what that would require, but man, that would add some variety, and it wouldn't really need to be much. Just a few positions changed, some elevations changed, a building moved, whatever the case may be, would add instant variety to the maps in the game. But that's pretty much the big idea from Guido. All right, guys, that is my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on the Stream of the Year 2020, some of which I very much appreciate, some of which I disagree, some of which I have some other ideas in there. Let me know what you think about all that down in the comments. And I'm betting you guys have even better ideas, so let me know what they are. That's it for this particular video. Wargaming, thanks for the battle button. Fantastic, very cool. Thanks for putting out a great game. Thanks for your community guys being generally great people and absolutely helping out us CCs, keeping us well fed and watered, as the case may be. And you know, thanks for continuing to try to improve your game, even if I disagree with some of those things. And thanks for potentially listening to some of us, whether we're just the average player or a CC or whatever. That's all I've got, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to go finish my coffee. My lunch is here. Time to go eat. We will see ya.